Sometimes I question myself, what am I doing? Why am I here? But I think I have a purpose. And I know years ago when I went through and developed my purpose statement, and my purpose was to be a whole and a complete woman, guiding others to happiness and wellness by caring and sharing. And so I think I've tried to live by that all along, and I think even being in the Senate and working with the Democrats and working with fellow representatives, I think just being a kind and caring person is very important, and it means a lot to me. I hate discord. I don't like to argue with anyone. I back off from that if I possibly can, and I try to find a positive in everything that I come in. It's not always easy, and this last session was an example of it. It was very, very hard when things were not working out, but I would hope that that's the impression that I would leave with people, that I try to be friendly, I try to be caring, and I think that's probably one of the biggest, most important traits. I really had never been involved with politics, and I was teaching up at the community college, and I was identifying that the city council, Calais City Council, was not making a decision about what to do about the school. We had a problem with asbestos in the school, and they kept tabling it and tabling it and tabling it. Well, Joyce Maker convinced me to say, well, if you're not happy with that, then you just need to run for city council. So I didn't even know where to begin. I had to go down to the city building. I had to find the city building first. I didn't even know where that was. Pick up a signature sheet that said I needed 25 signatures from registered Calais voters. I didn't even know 25 people. I had just moved there the year before. So I ended up going ahead and putting my name on the list, and there were 5 of us running for 2 seats, and I was elected as a city councilor in Calais. So I served that for 9 years. In the course of it, in the middle of all of that, I did actually run for the mayor. We have an elected mayor here in Calais, and I came in second, did not get that, so I sat out a year, and then I ran for the city council again and made it. And then at the end of that time, our mayor, Vinton Cassidy, who had been a previous senator, Honorable Vinton Cassidy, actually decided not to run for mayor. So I ran for mayor against Judy Alexander, and I beat her, and I became the mayor. So I actually served 2 terms as the mayor for 4 years before I ran for the House, and then I came in second in that race. And then when Joyce Maker decided not to run for re-election as a senator, then they talked me into running as the state senator, and so the rest is history. I've been the state senator for 6 years now. I fell in love with Maine. I was actually going to training outside of Boston for 16 days, and I was in pursuit of being in all 50 states. And I needed Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont were 3 of them, and then I needed Wyoming and North Dakota. So I ultimately got those. So one night I went to New Hampshire for dinner, and Friday night I went to Vermont, and then Saturday morning I got up and drove to Maine, and I just fell in love with Maine. And every chance I got, I would come back to Maine, drove all along Route 1, visited York and Bar Harbor and Wells, and I just fell in love with it. So when I had the opportunity to retire in 2000, I was going to retire in Colorado, and I thought, I hate regrets, so I'm going to go to Maine for 1 year, give myself a year. If it doesn't work out, then I'll go to Boulder, Colorado, because that's where I was going to retire. I have sisters that live in the Denver area, and 23 years later, I'm still here, and now I'm the state senator. So I just fell in love with Maine. It's such a beautiful place. I think the 131st was probably the most disjointed session or legislator that we've ever had. The 129th was, of course, I was brand new, and I had a lot to learn. I made a lot of friends, both across aisles. Just really worked hard and was able to get things done together, compromise, agree to disagree. In the 130th, that was the pandemic, and so there was a lot of different things, and it was so disheartening because we didn't have the relationship building that we had in the 129th. I still had the friends that I'd made, but some of them were gone. Some of them we were working from home. Some of our committees were disjointed. But then the 131st, it was probably the worst I'd ever seen it. I think it started with the Speaker of the House, and then we had, our Senator Jackson was our Senate President. we weren't working together. The House and the Senate were not working together. We saw discord. We saw wasted hours and hours of time just sitting there at the State House. It was just very, very frustrating. And like I said, it was very disheartening. Well, right now, I think inflation is killing us. The cost of living here in Maine, our taxes have gone up. Our property taxes are extremely high. What are we ranked? #1 is the highest property tax. We have a lack of housing, available affordable housing, put it that way. I know here in the Calais area, you can't hardly even find an apartment or a house to even rent that's reasonable when our salaries are not there. Transportation is an issue. We have one bus that runs from Bangor all the way to Ellsworth and then kind of makes a loop-de-loop once a day. We have a couple of cabs here in Calais, but we don't have the transportation infrastructure. I think the other thing we're looking at too is the lack of rural health, the lack of primary care physicians. It's a struggle. And I know living here in Calais, we have to go 2 hours to Bangor if we need to see a specialist and then try to get an appointment. I think I heard someone tell me the other day that they just got a referral and their appointment's April the 4th. So I think those are some of the major issues that we are faced with here in Maine, and it doesn't look promising for it to see any improvement. I think what really sets us aside is the fact that we are so rural. Even though we have a lot of coastline and we've got a lot of working waterfronts, our area is so widely spread out that we don't have the population that can actually support a lot of the different industries that might come to play, or the health care that might be needed, or the infrastructures, that we really, really need because we are so rural. And so often, this is why I ran, is because I want to continue to be our voice in Augusta. Everything centers around Portland, it'll center around Bangor, centers around Augusta, all of the major towns. But no one thinks about us here in Washington County, where our largest city is Calais, and has a population of 3,000. And our county seat is Machias, which is just a little bit less than that. So there's just so much rural in Washington County that we have to, I'm constantly feeling like I'm having to tell our story and make sure that the people are thinking of us and realizing that we are in need. We have just the same needs that somebody that lives in Bangor might have, but here in rural Maine, in Washington County. So that's my story that I keep pushing. I want to be their voice in Augusta. I want us to be heard. I want them to know what's happening in Washington County. I think probably one of the most things that I'm the most proudest of would be the fact that we did get the breakfast after the bell bill passed, and we started providing the free lunches and working towards that. I realized that the pandemic probably helped that along. The governor also helped that along. But I think that was one of my biggest accomplishments, was being able to provide that breakfast for those kids after the bell, because it's so important for nutrition, for them to actually be able to eat when a lot of them don't even have that at home, or they're eating this, the school lunches, and that's it. They have no supper to go home with. So that's one of my biggest ones. Another one, and it's a controversial topic, and that was the death with dignity, and getting that actually passed and getting that through. So many stories, so many people have come up to me afterwards now, even today, and say thank you. That was we really appreciate what you did and related to that, because they had a family member that wouldn't wish that they could have used the death with dignity. So that was another one of the ones that I'm really proud of what I've done. But I think also my serving as a Senate lead on the Health and Human Services Committee, I'm also very proud of that. The committee has always worked really, really hard to come up with compromises. We didn't always agree. We don't always agree on everything. But I think we work together. It's probably one of the most functional committees, I feel, and I think it's had a lot to do with leadership. The first session, I was a little apprehensive about it on the 129th. We had a little bit of a weak chair involvement, But we continue to work through that and continue to strive with that. 130th and the 131st, I've been very, very proud of what we have accomplished at the HHS committee. So those are some of the things. I think reopening the Downey's Correctional Facility, I think that was really important. We worked hard as a Washington County delegation to get that reopened. Getting the DHHS office reopened here in Catletts. I had so many people that they couldn't make it to the DHHS office in Machias, and so we were able to open those. Those are some of the things I was the most proudest that I've been able to accomplish in my tenure as the 6-year senator. One of my greatest disappointments was the fact that we were not successful in being able to have our own district attorney for Washington County. We really need that. We really need to split up Hancock and Washington County. The caseloads are so heavy. The courts are backed up. The pandemic didn't help, and we really could use our own. So that's another bill that I'm going to consider to pursue on my last term to see if we cannot. We need to have our own district attorney here in Washington County. So that's one of them. Another one is I'm still trying to get to finish the Sunrise Trail. That was the very first time I ran. I put that bill in. We've worked on it. We've showed all the reasons why. We've shown the economic development to that. Of course, now we are following the new plan where we actually have a planning committee that gets together and all the stakeholders talk about it. At least we've got that going, and we're hoping to have the outcome come out. So I'm hoping in this my last term that I'm going to be able to get that started and at least get that going. When I first moved here, I didn't know anybody. I had no knowledge of anyone here, and the first thing I wanted to do was to just get to know my community. So right off the bat, at that point in time, we had the St. Croix Healthy Community. It was part of the Healthy Community program or organization throughout the state. We had one in each county, and I went and volunteered with them and said, do you need any volunteers? And they looked at me like I was crazy because they never had anybody that had volunteered. And so I think it was really, to me it's really important to get involved. If I'm going to make this my home and I'm going to make this my community, then I need to be out there giving back to the community. And during the pandemic, when I found out that they had lost a lot of their drivers for Meals on Wheels and that they were hurting, that some of the people were picking up, other routes, and it was taking them all day to deliver meals because some of the older ones that were concerned about the immunity, their own immunity, their own health. So I volunteered to deliver Meals on Wheels. And so they've been so great in working with me. Once I was elected, because I oftentimes have to be in Augusta, I try to deliver on Monday mornings so that I can get it done, get the meals delivered, and then I can drive to Augusta Monday afternoon to get it done. It's hard when Mondays are holidays, but anyway, but I think community service is very, very important. If you love your community and you want to be a part of the community, then you need to be involved. You need to volunteer and do what you can. And I spent years as a chair of the the Relay for Life with the American Cancer Society. I volunteered, oftentimes for a lot of the different boards in town, Washington County Development Authority, just different boards. I think it's important to stay involved, and then you know what's going on too.